discuss. Just maybe 30 seconds and we will start. Proceed. So, hello everyone. Thanks for joining. Nice to see all of you, and I see a lot of the new faces here. Thanks for coming. It's actually our first event in this year, but not the last. We have a lot of the plans, and I really want to ask you to subscribe, to stay tuned, because even today we will have some interesting introduction for this year. And again, without you guys, we are nothing. So thanks a lot for all of your support. If you have any kind of the ideas to collaborate with our community, if you have any idea for the topics, for the articles, for the presentations, we are very open for everyone. So you can drop me a message via social network, and we will try our best. Also today, I would like to say our sponsor is EPAM. Actually, it's company when I'm employed now. And I would like to tell you my short story. Like a long time ago, my story and my career has been changed during the one event like this. It was actually AWS Minsk community meetup. I have no idea what is generally AWS, and that meeting became so interested. I met a lot of the interesting people, and I met one of my college friend who referred me to the EPAM Academy, and I've successfully passed it a couple years ago. It's actually for free, so it's not like the courses when you pay any kind of the money. You can I know a lot of people watching us on the YouTube, so maybe if it is not meet your requirements, for some of you it can be interesting. It's totally for free. You can learn from the real experienced professionals from EPAM. So if you're interested, you can scan this QR code, or you can just log in into training.epam.com. So you can refer your friends. Again, it's cost absolutely nothing, no any kind of the payments. So it's a really nice opportunity for the newcomers. Also, since today, I would say it's real hot news. We are a community partner of InfoShare conference. And I would like to ask you who already know about InfoShare. Could you please raise your hand? Oh. That's good. Because I would like to introduce today, we will have a giveaway, and we will share 10 tickets for the InfoShare. You know, it's actually have couple levels of the tickets, so for sure someone can attend for free, but we will share a regular ticket with access to the this conference. And I've actually living 2 years at Gdańsk, and in Gdańsk, and I participated twice this conference. I'm even was in InfoShare Dev in Gdynia, so I'm highly recommend to visit that. It's usually they are trying to bring a lot of the interesting speakers, and so really recommend you to visit this conference this year. It will be in May. So for those of you who want to buy the ticket like with full access, you can use this QR code. You will have 10% discount. It's permanent code, so feel free to share it with your friends, internet, wherever you want. And let's meet and on InfoShare this year together. What else? As I mentioned, today we have a lot of the surprises for you. For the most active people, we will share AWS credits for the interesting question. It's also related to our online audience, guys. AWS credits is just a promo code, so we are able to share it worldwide. So don't hesitate to drop your question into our chat. We will try to raise this during this meetup. Also, as I mentioned, we will draw some tickets to the InfoShare, so be active and let's make some fun. And also, please, if some of you really don't know about our user group or you have some idea, as I mentioned, please join our AWS user group, drop me a message. We have really nice ideas for this year. I don't want to introduce it now, but follow our social networks and we will make the introduction soon. Actually, that's all from my side. Let's start our today's meetup. As you know, today we'll have two speakers. First one is the Wojciech Gawronski from AWS, Senior Developer Advocate. So, Wojciech, floor is yours. We wait for your beautiful presentation about the AWS recap. So, welcome.
Hopefully I'm mic'd up. Let me know if you hear me or not. And in the meantime, when dealing with the cables, how many of you are actually participated Rain Event? Raise your hand, please. Participated, yeah, as a participants, joined the Rain Event. Okay, not so many. So this will be actually a good point and good starting point to actually introduce what we are talking about in the first place. So as Anton said, the overall January and February is the period when we are trying to summarize, a recap, what happened at the annual conference, which is called AWS Rain Event. And AWS Rain Event, as I told you, is a conference that happens in Vegas when we, AWS, announce a lot of new stuff, improvements for the existing services, but also new services. There's a lot of learning experiences around that as well, not just about the old and new services, but also about hands-on experience like workshops, lectures, and so on and so on. But essentially, the whole point is to actually recap everything that happened in Vegas, because that actually happened a lot of things and a lot of new announcements were made. How many of you are using AWS on a daily basis? Raise your hand, please. I expected that number. Okay, so keep your hands up if you have already some favorite announcements from Rain Event. Do you have one? I see some hands. The reason why I'm asking is that, I kid you not, I have 136 slides focused on the just announcements. And this is like summary of those, like 4 pages of blog posts about new stuff that was released last year. But I will obviously do not talk about everything because there is no time. If I will have to spend even 1 minute around every single announcement, I will probably spend 3 more hours to talk. There's no point of doing that. So let's do this differently. I encourage you to actually shoot at me with questions or specific announcements that you have in mind or topics you would like to dive in, because for majority of them I have prepared demos. I have some stuff that is available in the slide deck as well. And I also encourage people that are joining online to contribute to that as well. So if you are interested in any particular announcements, if that will be available or if I will have something prepared for that, we can talk about it. If I will not have it, that will give me a nice feedback that I overtook as something that is important or interesting. So let me start, and then I will switch sides and I will ask for your feedback. I obviously need to start with the, not main theme, but that was actually one of the most advertised set of announcements around generative AI stack on AWS. And as you know, AWS has multiple layers of different services available. you for sure know services that are core and foundation for everybody, like S3, simple storage service, or EC2 virtual machines, or VPC. In the same way, a generative AI stack and general machine learning stack is organized in the same way on AWS as well. Because we have infrastructure, we have tools that will help you to build your applications, and then we have applications on top of that that will help you to enhance the experience on the customer experience basis, and also to enhance the developer experience when you are building those applications. So essentially, even for the most low-level stuff, we also announce new stuff. For example, additions for the EC2 capacity blocking that is available, and in terms of capacity mechanisms and managing that for machine learning workloads, especially for GPU-based machine virtual machines. We added some elements for SageMaker, not just for the SageMaker for the data scientist, the SageMaker Studio, but also for SageMaker to train those models on a daily basis. Obviously, a big topic was enhancements and announcing as generally available stuff from Amazon Bedrock, which was an API for managing the foundation models on top of AWS. And on top of that, there were some announcements around business applications for that will support both user experience and customer experience for the business apps, but also development experience for in your IDE. And that was also supported by another small app, but which is pretty fun and pretty interesting, which is AWS Party Rock. How many of you actually heard about this? A few people, okay. If you haven't joined the Party Rock, this is the easiest way to actually start your journey with generative AI. And you can actually scan the QR code and enter the Party Rock console, which will allow you to build your applications with the natural language processing prompts. So essentially, you are prompting how you would like to design your application and explain what you would like to build. And as a result, Party Rock builds the application for you from the widgets, and then you will be able to see the result based on the text. This is a sample application. It is a fun one because you can also remix from the other concepts that people released. But this is essentially the easiest way to start your experience with generative AI. Also as a programmer, as a creator, someone who has a creative mind behind. And by the way, there's still submissions open for the Party Rock Hackathon, which has amazing money prizes, but also credit-based prizes. So you can join, learn more about this on the official website. And I can actually switch a little bit to show you how that website looks like. So essentially, after logging in, you will see the console, and you will see that you are able to create some kind of applications like Haiku generator or weird tour guide. And essentially, you are starting with a prompt, and then it generates the application for you. And if you will go a little bit below, then you see the Party Rock Generative AI Hackathon link, so you can learn more about it, about the prizes and how we are actually judging the submissions. So there will be categories, interactive learning experience, creative assistant, experimental entertainment, and also freestyle. And there will be also a side quest for remixing the apps. So how far and how creative you can go from a particular baseline based on the remixing. So this is about the Party Rock. Now let's talk about what was announced in terms of generative AI. And I will go very quickly throughout that because this is a very extensive topic. First things first, AWS announced something that was called Amazon Q. And this is an umbrella of multiple capabilities and services. So Amazon Q is essentially a very helpful tool available both in documentation, in AWS Management Console, and also in your IDEs and other AWS services as well that will help you with the power of artificial intelligence trained on the 17 years of experience on the AWS side to do certain stuff with this. And by do certain stuff, I mean literally it depends when you will interact with Q, what kind of stuff it can do. So first one is obviously when you are creating your apps. You can install the Amazon Q through the AWS Toolkit extension, for example, for VS Code, for JetBrains, for Visual Studio, and then access the available queue capabilities through the chat, and you can guide with this AI-based code assistant and provide a conversation around your application, explain the source code, generate the test cases, and so on and so on. You have also capability to ask very similar questions, but from the context of your documentation session. So in the AWS documentation, you can actually ask questions to queue about how you can do a certain stuff on AWS. And from the AWS console perspective, you can do the same with asking questions about how to do certain stuff inside the console. So for example, you can have Amazon Q available inside your documentation, and then you can ask certain questions. This is a basic one, but it actually provides you the answer based on the knowledge and the documentation available. And the same goes with your IDE. So for example, in this Visual Studio code session, you can actually see that inside AWS Toolkit, which is installed as an extension, you should be able to have Amazon Q, and then you can ask various questions around your code. This will have all the context regarding different sessions and different examples. Yeah, Grzegorz?
I have one question about Q and the context. Is there any way to enhance the context about all infrastructure already provided or not?
That's a very good question. So Grzegorz is asking about the management console queue access, right? So if you are opening this inside your management console. So at the moment, Q is not scanning and not searching your account regarding. Yes, there's no way to do this. But if you will ask a very specific questions around certain capabilities, it will redirect you and suggest certain actions on your account. For example, if you would like to check the network connectivity between two different IP addresses that are either in your VPC or externally, it will rephrase your question into the context of reachability analyzer. So in terms of VPC reachability analyzer, it will provide you a tool with the parameters that you can click and then see the results.
The same about quota?
So at the moment, not for quota. Yeah, that's a very good question. I heard that also. Not for quota. There are a very limited set of the capabilities at the moment. VPC reachability analyzer is one of them. And I don't remember from top of my head the other ones. So yeah, you can actually refer to the docs regarding this. And in the meantime, in the background, you've seen that we selected this particular code and based either by copying, pasting, or sending it to prompts, and then asking a certain question, for example, explaining that particular code sample. For me, Q provided an explanation on the sidebar. Yep?
Do we have limitation for code size?
That's a very good question. I don't remember from top of my head, but there is a limit how much you can paste and how much you can provide, but I don't remember exact number. There is one. Yeah?
Wojciech, can I ask you to repeat the question for online audience?
Yeah, sure. So there was a question Boris asked about, is there any limitation for how much code we can paste to the queue? Yeah, thanks, Anton, for the context. Exactly. So definitely there is a limit, but I don't remember how much. There is information about it in the docs. Yeah, yeah. So again, it depends when you are interacting with Q. For example, if you are interacting with the documentation, it is knowing just the context of your current browser and nothing is sent and stored. Your questions are not sent. If it's Visual Studio, it also depends if you are having Code Whisperer Enterprise, because you can have that interaction with Code Whisperer Enterprise. And for example, you can use, actually getting ahead of time about Code Whisperer Enterprise, but there is a capability to provide your code base for the suggestions that will be provided by the Code Whisperer. And then this way it will be, it needs to be sent there and then returned back. But at the same time, bottom line is that nothing is reused for training, that's for sure. Your data stays private and nothing is shared between other tenants, other users of AWS. So everything that you have is your private session and private interaction in all cases. And that actually goes into very interesting example about this, because Amazon Q has also inside IDE another capability which is called code transformation. At the moment, this is available as a preview and supports just the Java apps, but you can migrate from a specific version of your Java application to the version 17 or 11. Sorry, from Java 8 or 11 to Java 17. So essentially, it automatically performs the upgrade, and there will be support for migrating to Linux from Windows-based services and so on. So this is a pre-recorded one because it takes too long to actually show it, but you see that we have Java 1.8 application, and then we are using code transformation from Amazon Q that is available. So we are actually providing a Maven app to that, and then it started the whole job and transformations available for you. So essentially, it builds up the code, generates the transformation plan, provides you all the details about the steps that will be used there. And as a result, it will provide you information that all those steps will be executed. So first, we will update dependencies and code, then we will build this Java 17 updated version, and then we will finalize code changes and provide you a summary. So essentially, in those 3 steps in this particular project, it will execute the whole change. And then if you have tests, if you have build pipeline available, it will invoke this based on your tool of preference. In this particular case, it will be Maven. So essentially, as a result, it will provide you the change, the diff, so you can see that it adjusted the stuff for the Java app. So it migrated some of the APIs. It migrated and detected also the dependencies. So it updated one from a particular version to another. This is Lambda. It ran those tests. It verified that everything works on the newest version. And now you have just a commit available that you can actually run and build on your CI/CD to verify that everything works correctly, as we are doing right now. So this is a pretty cool one. I know that it seems a little bit limited at the moment because we still have migration from 8 or 11 to 17, but at the same time, you can imagine how this will look like in future when there will be more options available, including migration from Windows to Linux as well. Another way of handling multiple things with Q is actually handling this inside Code Catalyst. How many of you are using or heard about Code Catalyst? 2 people. Okay, so essentially Code Catalyst, for those of you who haven't heard, this is the whole software development lifecycle tool around the software development process. So it's like combination of multiple elements. It can handle task management, it can handle source code management, it can handle also the CI/CD and building pipelines. And you are not limited to just AWS choices. You can integrate multiple tools like GitHub or Jira and so on and so on. So essentially, it is a central place for managing the whole project delivery. And you can use Amazon Q as well there. Again, this is a preview feature at the moment, but you can go and in a given repository, ask through the prompting to generate a new feature for me. And this will actually, from the ticket standpoint, it will generate the pull request, provide you the ability to extend this particular code. It will understand what the changes needs to be made in the first place. So now we are creating this issue, and I would like to change the get cities to return a list of cities ordered by, and then I will provide the details and assign this to Amazon Q. And then Q will actually pick it up and then generate the source code change and PR for me. Again, this is a simplistic case and very simplified one, but at the same time, you can see that this has a much bigger potential if that will be refined and extended. Obviously, Q, for that particular use case, will ask you about additional things. So for example, do you allow Q to modify the code, or do you allow to modify it on a branch or on a particular structure? Then it will read the repository, generate everything in the background, provide you the pull request with the code that you can review later on, and then you will have the result. So I will speed up this video a little bit. So first, it provided you the approach, which in the approach we had information around how Q will solve that. You can provide additional comments and say, don't use external dependencies or libraries because I'm not interested in that. And then it will revise the approach and provide the other solution that will incorporate your feedback. If you are fine with this, you can actually proceed with the change and then go and see how the pull request will look like. So essentially, we are waiting for the pull request to be generated. I can speed up this with the power of editing. And then, as a final result, Q prepared with the revised approach, prepared the changes for us inside the repo. So it understood that we have a particular code structure. It understood that we have this getCities function that was used inside Lambda, and then it introduced another one for sorting. It also expanded test cases because it detected that we used testing framework and also added those test cases to verify that we are actually sorting that in a proper way. So as you can see, this is like generating a starting point at least, or something that you can refine as a developer later on to remove all the tedious bits in terms of feature development and then later on revise the approach on your own. Another way to interact with Q is actually to do it inside the quick site. Some of you who are working with AWS much longer remember that Q was available in quick site, but it wasn't Amazon Q that was released right now. But at the same time, we are having the support at the moment. So you can generate with the prompting, you can generate the dashboards, visualizations, and everything else inside. Then there is another way to actually interact with Q, and you can build your own chat-based applications based on the fine-tuned or the actually not fine-tuned, but actually provided data from your own enterprise data. Sorry, provide a chatbot that will use your enterprise data when you will for your business use cases and business purposes. So essentially, you are not just using what we provided as AWS inside Q, but you can expand the Q to your use case and tailor it to your enterprise data by extending it and connecting the knowledge bases. Essentially, you can extend multiple different applications and provide them through the multiple connectors. And essentially, you will have all the connectivity and power and data privacy secured with that solution as well. So you don't have to be worried about providing your enterprise data or your company data to an external entity, because everything will be stored inside your AWS account and also inside the your context only. Any questions regarding Q so far? Anything else to cover? Okay, so let's switch gear a little bit. What would be the next announcement you would like to learn more about? Any guesses? Anything you would like to learn more? Yeah?
Can we rent macOS instances for less than 24 hours?
That's not available. That's not available yet. And that's a licensing issue at the moment, yes. But that wasn't fixed. Any other? Yeah? Come again, GPU intense? So before this Rain event, there were multiple options to actually handle this. Now that we have more available infrastructure options based on the new NVIDIA hardware that was released as well. So H100s, for example, that are available as the virtual machines. So yeah, that was also one of the things that was announced on Rain event in terms of hardware advancements. But even before Rain event, there was a plethora of options for GPU-based workloads. Do you have anything specific in mind? DPUs. So what would be this case for the DPUs then? Any specific framework or any specific use case, domain-specific use case? Because in terms of like data processing stuff on AWS, there are again multiple different options. Yeah, but at the same time, what will be this particular question you are asking about? What exactly? Do you have, because there is, you can train models on AWS, you can transform them depending on your experiences and preferences. You can use Spark, you can use Flink, for example. So again, depending on which direction we will go, there are some options. If you have something specific in mind, let me know. Okay, let's switch.
Okay, the question is related as well to the generative AI, because in my company we are introducing this stuff, but for now we are doing it for the proof of concept based on OpenAI.
Mm-hmm.
And I deployed a Lambda function that is calling OpenAI. It came that we need to fine-tune the model as well, but it adds a lot to latency. So Lambda, when it warms up and it's calling external API, OpenAI API, it generates inference.
Mm-hmm.
Comes back after, let's say, 5 to 15 seconds. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time. How it compares to Amazon Bedrock? Because I would like to benchmark it
Mm-hmm.
and show the alternative. Because we are hosting all of our infrastructure on AWS, so maybe we could avoid as well data compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a lot of mess with it, because we need to put this data outside. And from a technical standpoint, maybe the AWS Bedrock would be less latency.
Okay, so answering your question, so again, restating your question. So you ask about how much, is there any latency benefit for using Bedrock inside Lambda in comparison to external APIs? Definitely, you can have much lower latency, especially if you will use the VPC endpoint and then connect directly, not through the public internet, but through the VPC routes by the interface endpoints to the Bedrock. And that actually brings us to Amazon Bedrock and what it is really, because essentially you can access Amazon Bedrock as an API from anywhere, like in case of the competitors, but you can also have this available for you in terms of fine-tuned models and also in terms of network connectivity and ability. About this?
No. I have a question from online audience.
Uh-huh.
First of all, hello from Montenegro, from Semyon. And the question, could you please share some news from house engineering part with FIS?
Yes, so I don't have this in the slide, but I know that there were some advancements and introduction of the new fault injections that you are able to simulate. So one is called, and I'm using air quotes deliberately, simulating a regional failure, and one was about simulating availability zone failure, to actually introduce those into your testing use cases. So that were two pretty major ones regarding the FIS, if I remember correctly. And thanks for the question. And returning to Bedrock, because that is a bit more, we need to dive deeper into that question. You said that you are currently having this use case that you are reaching the external API. You provide this a prompt, and then this prompt is using.
Prompt is not optimized yet because.
Is it prompt engineering or? Mm-hmm.
And the whole prompt needs to be sent outside
Mm-hmm.
and returned back.
Got it. So essentially, with Bedrock, you have a few multiple options, a few more options available for you to reduce the latency. One is the networking, as we discussed. So you can actually bridge this with the VPC, configure VPC interface endpoints, and now you are using private connectivity on top of the AWS to your service. So no public internet round trip. That's one thing. Another thing, Bedrock for some of the models supports fine-tuning on top of that. So you can actually fine-tune those models, generate your specific foundation models that are fine-tuned for you, and then access them in the API way. So you will probably, in this particular case with prompt engineering, you may not need to send as much prompt because of that to your service, and the response will be quicker, token window will be smaller, and so on and so on.
The second part of the question, because it's really important as well, is
Mhm.
for a specific use case. You generate like split, it's name entity recognition. You need to recognize the parts of address.
Mhm.
And we need to supply, let's say, those CSV file to
Mhm.
for the model to. This technique is called retrieval.
Yeah, RAG. Yeah.
And the question is, does the Bedrock support it? Does Bedrock have embedding models as well?
Yeah, so you can also have this. So let's actually structurize this a little bit. So we discussed that the Bedrock is as an alternative to the competitor available service that it's providing you a large language models as an API. And essentially, in case of Bedrock, you have a full marketplace of those models available. So not just the ones that are prepared by one company, but there are multiple companies on top of Amazon Bedrock that are providing your models. So we have AI21 Labs, we have Anthropic, Cohere, Meta, and Llama 2 that it's available for fine-tuning as well. We have Stable Diffusion models from Stability AI, and we have Amazon models as well. So in terms of the newest advancements on top of the Bedrock, I think the most important one was the ability to have Llama 2 70 billion parameters and ability to fine-tune it as well. And then Claude 2.1, which is the newest version from Anthropic with the bigger token context window and reduced hallucination rate. And that was available on Bedrock 25% cheaper than in comparison to the regular API. But then, on top of the Amazon Bedrock, you have two options to actually help with your specific use cases and data. You can either fine-tune those models, or you can go even step beyond and do the continuous pre-training for your models as well. So for fine-tuning, you are actually maximizing accuracy for very specific tasks, and you will need a smaller number of the examples to fine-tune it. On the other hand, if you would like to pre-train those models because you already have a large data set available for you, you can do it on top of Bedrock as well. And this will be actually maximizing the accuracy and trying to focus on accuracy in your particular case. So on a particular example, let's imagine a situation that we would like to have a very specific case around tailoring the marketing campaigns. So as you can imagine, we will need to provide additional data to our model to know, for example, about our inventory, about what we are selling as a company, to add a little bit more context. We can use the Meta Llama 2 model and then provide some labeled data from Amazon S3 and then fine-tune it and use that fine-tuned model to generate the stuff that is relevant for social media, for displaying ads, for copies on the websites. So in this particular case, with the labeled data on Amazon S3, we are able to fine-tune it in a fully managed way. Another alternative way to extend the knowledge of those foundation models is something called knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock. So this is actually the case you've described, which is the fully managed way to handle retrieval augmented generation. So RAG. How does it work? Essentially, you are providing the knowledge base for Amazon Bedrock in a specific format. I will tell you in a moment how, but you will be able to provide the prompts with those RAG-based knowledge bases, and then you will be able to switch those models also depending how you would like to evaluate the quality of the accuracy and so on and so on. So essentially, you will be able to have a RAG workflow, and that includes ingestion, retrieval, and augmentation handled with the Bedrock, and you can actually focus on business use case, on checking if a particular model behaves better or worse than the other, or to compare them between as well. What kind of knowledge bases are supported at the moment? So for sure, you can connect the vector engine from OpenSearch Serverless. Then you have Redis Enterprise Cloud and Pinecone. So I think in your case, when you are talking about CSV, I think the easier way will be, unfortunately, to load it to one of those databases first and then connect them as a knowledge base for Bedrock to test and check how it behaves. Later on, there will be support for MongoDB and Aurora, but again, it's not a CSV file for RAG pattern. In your case, it sounds like maybe you will be able to, or maybe actually not. I think you need to drop to filling those data sources first and then use this as a...
One of the embedding models that AWS provides.
So you can use all of them that are available in Bedrock in general, yes. So not just the Amazon-based models like Titan family of models, but you can use Claude, you can use Llama or anything else. Any questions regarding this? Yeah.
Question from online audience regarding the Bedrock. It is possible to do RL or RL on top of fine-tuned model with the Bedrock?
Is it possible to do what exactly?
RL. RL.
Reinforcement learning, probably.
I think so.
So AR or RL? So reinforcement learning, probably.
Yeah, it's hard to pronounce.
Yeah, it's mouthful. So, yeah, answering this shortly, not with Bedrock, because there is no such thing at the moment available to you explicitly, but you should be able to do it with the models that are available on SageMaker, for example, with the Jumpstart, and then based on that, you should be able to leverage this.
Second question, could you sum up the news regarding of current progress of AWS in the Zero ETL area?
Yeah, so we can actually touch ETL in a moment regarding the how to do it and what is the approach on AWS side on that. I would like to just finish the Bedrock case. So one thing that can be interesting for your case is actually something called agents for Amazon Bedrock, because this is one the opinionated way how to execute multi-step tasks across different systems and data sources in a fully automated and augmented way. And I think you are trying to do the same stuff with Lambda, as you explained. So let me... Okay, so yeah, so the concept is similar, exactly. So it's all about orchestration of multiple steps and how to connect different sources and do the orchestration between them. Before agents for Bedrock, you could do this also on AWS Lambda or step functions, but you will need to code and orchestrate everything on your own. With agents for Bedrock, you have an API to actually design the agent. You are telling what kind of actions it can do. You are providing AWS Lambda implementation for those actions. And then prompting and the whole connection of the sources, RAG and everything else is handled by the Bedrock itself. So essentially you have a fully managed way to orchestrate the details behind the agent model or agent concept, I would say. And then you have full control over the implementation regarding the action hooks. So this is a way to actually orchestrate in an agent framework, in an agent model with Amazon Bedrock as well. And last but not least, which is extremely important for those AI models and LLMs in general, if you are exposing them somewhere, you don't want to open them or make them vulnerable for some actions that shouldn't happen because some malicious people would like to exploit that. And there is a way to handle that on Amazon Bedrock to provide the proper way in a data governance model, but also in a responsible AI way, which is called guardrails. And this is essentially a way to handle the certain topic filters and content moderation available for you, and making sure that if you are defining those rules, you are not exposing something that shouldn't be done by the model, by the LLM. So you can configure and detect harmful content. You can detect and react if there will be, or at least you will be able, but as it is coming soon, to detect the PIIs, so personally identifiable informations. And you should be able to approach and add those guardrails to all the models that are fine-tuned and also for your agent workflows as well. So it's not just for Amazon Bedrock, but everything that you are building with Bedrock in general as well. Okay, any questions? So let's switch gears because there was a question already about the zero ETL approach, and I'm going a little bit more further in the presentation. So there was a question around the different ETL approaches to how Amazon AWS handles that. And the one general theme from 2022 already was that it would be great if we can live in a situation when we don't have to write those custom ETL scripts, and we can integrate multiple data sources between each other in a zero ETL way. And this year was also filled with the announcements that actually expanded on top of that, because Amazon Redshift and Amazon Aurora MySQL received additional integrations with the for that. So you are able to use the Amazon Aurora MySQL in a zero ETL way with the Amazon Redshift. So you are able to load your relational database data inside the data warehouse, and you don't have to worry around converting that or ETLing it in order to load it properly to your data warehouse. So you should be able to benefit from having data in those two different places as well. And that's in terms of the zero ETL part. In terms of other ETL enhancements, there were some updates for AWS Glue and some announcements for how to handle data quality with AWS Glue as well. But that's for the classic way when we are actually writing those ETL scripts because we don't have any other choice. Speaking about this, I would like to show you one more capability that is available for Amazon Q, but this time this is available for Amazon Redshift. In this particular case, we are having the Amazon Redshift that it's serverless, but you can actually connect to any Redshift warehouse to leverage this. So I have an example that already has some data warehouse schema loaded. I loaded the data from Amazon S3 as well to that. And as you can see, we have 9 tables, 1 fact table, and multiple dimensions. Let's assume I know nothing about this schema, and I would like to make sure that I will be able to query it still. So first things first, when you are using Redshift Query Editor version 2, you can enable a feature which is called generative SQL. And if you can improve those recommendations based on the available queries that were run earlier, you can also give access to the SQL query editor by granting certain roles in your data warehouse. But in this particular case, we know nothing about this schema. This is like a bird's eye view for that schema. And now let's try to understand what we are dealing with very little knowledge about it. So I can open a side chat with Amazon Q, and now I can start asking questions about this data set and the data warehouse that is available. So I see, based on the names of the table, that I'm dealing with some kind of coffee selling business. So I typed there specifically how many coffee cups have been distributed so far and per event basis, and it generated a proper SQL query for me. And as you can see, this SQL query runs properly on that data warehouse. It will return some data, but it has some issues, so small issues. For example, we have IDs. So we have a column with the event ID. That's not very user-friendly, not very helpful. We would like to have more knowledge. Also, it's not sorted. So in the particular context of the conversation, I just say sort this by count, and it generated another query right off the bat. This time actually sorting this properly based on the created column. Also, we can group this by event name and show the event name itself and also the count. And it will also properly do the joins and do the grouping. So I can actually copy that query to the notebook again, invoke it, and you will see exactly the same query, but improved, refined one. And with the power of generative AI and actually Amazon Q, I am able to work with this data set and work with this data warehouse without very little, or not without, but very little knowledge around what it's there and how we can interact with this. And you can push it even further and actually ask a little bit more refined questions to that. For example, by providing splits by coffee type. So we have different types of coffees. We can have cappuccino, we can have black coffee. So we can actually see that it detected that there is another table, another dimension that needs to be joined. It named also those columns properly. And as a result, it will also return the results which are properly grouped and joined as a result. So this is one of the cool advancements and cool things that Amazon Q has at the moment available from the perspective of data warehouse and the Redshift integration.
There is the same like EMR. You have the EMR translation from
So not EMR, but in Glue. So you can ask Q at the moment. That wasn't released on Rain Event, but was released a little bit earlier, like I think a few weeks ago.
the same mechanism.
Exactly. This is a side chat that allows you to, by just prompting a natural text, generate glue jobs that will do the ETL for you. Yeah. So nowadays it's possible as well with Glue. Any questions regarding this particular part or data analytics in general? Maybe you have interesting announcements you would like to cover regarding data analytics or databases. Yeah? So you have already a data loaded into the data warehouse, but you would like to see the DML queries. That's a very good question. I don't know if that's a very good question to ask Q in this chat. I think he can generate something to some degree that will be accurate because it already knows about it and it has all the representation. Yep. You mean probably zero ETL?
If I may add to this, you can, Redshift is still, to some extent, a Postgres.
Well,
Or it used to be.
yeah, it used to be. That's the first point.
Whole schema. If it's already there, all the foreign keys are in place.
Yeah, you
You
can.
don't need any machine learning to do. You just dump it, you can recreate it in another Redshift.
Guys,
Yeah,
I like
but-
this kind
but-
of the discussion. Maybe we left it for the
That's a very good
networking.
point.
Yeah.
And to build what you said, yeah, this is essentially, you already have that information in the database, so you don't need any fancy stuff. When AI can help is actually when it can suggest updates or recommendations, for example, how you will handle distribution keys in your data warehouse or where to put indexes and so on. So that is actually also handled by the update on the Redshift side that it's nowadays suggesting some AI-based improvements as well. And that was actually announced on AWS Rain Event. So this actually covers what the gentleman said about that you have that information, but there are some places when AI can help as well. Anton reminded me very diligently that we have 15 minutes, I guess, until the end. So let me switch gears a little bit more because I have two topics I would definitely like to talk about. So how many of you watched the keynotes for the AWS Rain Event? Not so many, a few people. Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard about it, as you can imagine, on a big conference, there are some big presentations at the start of the day. Each day we have different keynotes, and during the last day, actually almost the last day, there is a keynote done by Amazon CTO, Dr. Werner Vogels. And he is always doing those keynotes for engineers and engineers only, and focuses on very interesting points. And this year, he put more emphasis on something that is around costs and sustainability. And he created a frugal architect guide. So essentially, he returned to all the motivation behind why we are building apps in the cloud and why we should pay attention how we are actually measuring that in terms of costs, in terms of efficiency. And he created 7 rules of those frugal architects that they are building in the cloud. So if you don't scan the QR code right now, you will just type the frugalarchitect.com and you will get all the information. But the most important stuff is that you will have those 7 laws which are focusing on how to actually build those applications in the cloud in a cost-aware way. So cost should be your non-functional requirement. It should be aligned to the business. It should be a trade-off, and it's always a series of trade-off in terms of architecture, but you should not sacrifice the cost if that's important for you. Lack of observation and lack of monitoring leads to systems that are actually hard to maintain and also expensive. So this is a 4th rule as well. And having cost-aware architectures means that you need to implement cost control. So you need to be able to monitor that and control that cost. And cost optimization is always incremental. And if you are having some kind of unchallenged successes, it leads to assumptions which are not exactly the best possible way to handle that. And to help with the cost observation and monitor that and having the cost control in place, there were some announcements that could be pretty interesting from that perspective. So one was about introducing something called My Applications Management Console Edition. So essentially now, based on some tag-based automated way, you are able to monitor and manage cost, health, and also security and performance as well of your applications on AWS. So this way you are able to have the single pane of glass of the health, cost, efficiency, performance, and security for your applications that you have on AWS out of the box. So essentially, this is like a part of having a specific application tag key, which is AWS application by default. And then you are able to tag those different applications and differentiate between them and see how they are actually, if they are properly engineered and so on. Another one was changed to the unified billing and cost management. And billing on AWS, as majority of you know, it's not an easy topic. And there are further refinements and improvements to actually provide you even more visibility into that. And that unified billing and cost management released this year, or actually last year, but we are talking this year about it, is actually one of the steps to actually improve the visibility in that topic as well. And last but not least, there was a huge release to the cost optimization hub when you have much more visibility nowadays in terms of how it works, what it provides, and allows you to also have some recommendations when you can save money as well. Any questions regarding the cost optimization or frugal architect? Yeah? Yeah, finally, because that was one of the things that was often suggested that why AWS didn't join the FinOps as a foundation, as a movement. And that actually happened before Rain Event, but on the Rain Event that was also announced across that topic that nowadays AWS is also part of the FinOps Foundation. So again, we tend to have in the past something we called Cloud Financial Management Framework, CFM in short. Nowadays we are fully aligned with FinOps and how the FinOps Foundation works as well. And we are updating constantly the documentation and all the references as well, including well-architected framework. So yeah, nowadays it's a fact that AWS also joined the FinOps. Any other questions? All right, so one additional topic that I would like to talk about is unless you have any specific release that you would like to talk about. Okay, no. So I have one more cool demo to show you, and we will conclude. So we discussed a little bit around generative AI. We talked about how we can feed that corporate data to those foundation models. But if you are, all of you are engineers, you are curious people, you may ask how those machines know that we are actually handling this natural text, and what does it mean for a machine? How does it handle? And the answer is that machine doesn't care about your text, it cares about vectors. And essentially, the way how those foundation models are trying to reason around our things is that we need to provide our data in a form of a vectorized way. And vector searches and vector storages, because it actually provides you a little bit more context about what we will talk about, those vector storages are very important, especially if we would like to tailor those foundation models and provide our data to them to actually compare with with what they learned so far. So on the particular visualization, you see that we have different terms like cat, kitten, old, feline, and they are either close to each other or very far away, but they are having some proximity or similarity to each other. And this is how those machines are determining if particular sentence or particular terms are close to each other or not. They are using vectors in space, in multidimensional space, to compare that. But how we are actually storing our data that are textual inside those databases in that format. So more or less, all those databases have some kind of additions that allows us to store the vectors inside the databases. So before Rain Event, you could use RDS or Relational Database Service with Postgres or Aurora with PostgreSQL and use pgvector to store those vectors inside your databases. And that allows you to actually support the similarity searches or any vector searches. We also had preview of the Amazon OpenSearch Serverless Vector Engine that allows you for a very similar thing, but on the OpenSearch side. So for all of you that worked previously with Elasticsearch, this is essentially a way to have vector storage inside Elasticsearch compatible clusters. But after Rain Event, we have much more options available. So not just the regular RDS and Postgres, but also we have Redis update, we have update for DocumentDB, which is MongoDB compatible. We have vector storage for Neptune, which is our graph-based database. And we have update that is generally available for OpenSearch as well. So how does this vector creation looks in practice? So finally, let's move to the demo. I have a cluster that it's using DocumentDB, so MongoDB compatible thing. And I need to make sure that I'm using the newest version, which is DocumentDB 4.0. And in that cluster, I will create a new collection that will store all the titles for the blog posts that are on AWS blog. And I would like to see if I'm able to create a similarity search, how close different blog post titles are from each other. So essentially, I have 80 blog posts and title from those blog posts that I will generate vectors for those, store that in the collection, and I'm generating this by asking the Bedrock API with the Titan embeddings model. So this is essentially an API to generate those embeddings for me, those vectors. And then I will insert that to the collection on MongoDB side and create an index that is using vector field and similarity, which is using cosine similarity. So this is a mathematical way of saying how we will evaluate similarity between. So this Python script is actually generating the dimensions for me. So you can see that all those blog posts have exactly the same dimensions in terms of vector dimensions. Pretty big number of dimensions, 1.k. I have 81 blog posts that are loaded, and I have already index created as well as a result of that script. So I had text, now in that column I have vectors, and when I will ask about similarity, I will use this particular metric that is defined inside this vector. So now I created a second application, which will ask me for the prompts, and then I will generate a vector for that prompt and compare the similarity between those two. And how I will compare the similarity? I will essentially run a query against the database. So I will do the aggregation query on top of that vector search. I will ask for top 5 results, and I will add additional stuff for the probing and obviously the cosine metric that I defined earlier. And then I will list all of them in sequence. So if I will run this particular vector search, you will see that when I will prompt that I'm interested about blog posts around DocumentDB, it returned top 5 ones which are similar for him. And as you can see, it didn't just do the DocumentDB search, full text search. It also knew that Open Search service is close to MongoDB or DocumentDB. Or like in this case, I typed serverless, and then there is no serverless in the last title, but it knew that AWS Lambda functions have something in common regarding the serverless. And this is a consequence of actually using Titan embeddings model, because it's already pre-trained and knows something about AWS. So that actually shows that using a proper embeddings generation mechanism and also models that are available, you are able to build on top of that something more fancy. So to sum up what we have available here, as I've shown you, we have DocumentDB vector search support. We have public preview for MemoryDB in Redis. And public preview, it means that you can access it on your own as well, but in certain regions only. You have generally available support for OpenSearch Serverless, for Vector Engine. You have Vector Engine on top of new additions as well regarding the new algorithms for graph analytics in Neptune. And that's it regarding the vector search. And Anton already told me that I have 2 minutes to finish, so unfortunately I need to skip to the end. But maybe we'll have some time for questions. So if you would like to learn more about AWS Rain Event, I definitely encourage you to look into the AWS Events YouTube channel. We have plenty of great talks there, which are diving even deeper in some topics, which I guess this will be desired one. I can definitely recommend one about Aurora Limitless. It's a 400 level session, and if you are a database geek like me, you will appreciate that session. You can look up for Amazon Aurora deep dive session from this year Rain Event. That's everything what I prepared for today. Last question and request from me. This QR code points to a feedback survey that it's important for me. So if you can fill out survey for me, I will be very grateful. And I think we are on time. Thank you so much.
Definitely at time, let's say. And thanks a lot, Wojtek. It was really great presentation. I have only last question from our online audience about similarity search. Do you perform similarity search just using embedding with cousin similarity check, or do you somehow reduce the dimensions before? How large can be embedding then?
So I did it very crude way. I did not reduce dimensions. I use cosine because I just defined this cosine as a input and also as a prompting. But yeah, you can also implement much more sophisticated things. For example, 1.5K dimension, maybe for that particular use case, sounds like an overkill. Maybe we can reduce the dimensionality there as well. So definitely there is a room for improvement. This was a very simplified demo.
Now the most, how to say, my preferable part. We have some AWS credits on front of you, so feel free to reward our audience. We have 3 amount for the offline speakers and 3 amount for the online audience, so feel free to choose and
so
reward.
You will do the honors for online, I guess.
Exactly. You just need to choose the question and highlight it for me.
So yeah, thank you, Anton, for this. So I will choose based on the interesting questions and also how much they were asked. So I will definitely pass the first things first question to you for your use case. Thank you so much. For you for number of questions you had, and for you for comment about the Postgres heritage regarding Redshift. Thank you so much.
About the questions from online audience. I think we had actually 3 questions, so I will just reward all of them. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you, Wojciech. Applause, please.
Thank you so much.
And guys, now we have just 5 minutes break to drink some water and take some free air here. So, yeah. I hope our streaming back online, and we are ready to proceed with the second, last but not least part of our meetup. And let me introduce my colleague from EPAM, Hleb. Hleb is a lead system engineer, and I've actually saw this presentation yesterday. I believe it will be very interesting. So very welcome, Hleb. First time for our community, but I hope not the last. So, Hleb, floor is yours. Welcome.
So, hey everyone. I believe my mic works perfectly, yeah? Are you hearing me? Yeah, cool. So, previous presenter was the best. Thank you very much. I'm pretty sure that AWS Rain Events are a significant part of AWS philosophy doctrine, and this is how we can find appropriate parts, a few further parts for us, how to create sophisticated systems. Nevertheless, I would like to talk about the most teeny entity that help us create some sophisticated structures on our information boilerplate. I'm gonna come across just briefly across surface of Lambda service. After that, we will a little bit dig into some easy level workshop. And finally, I will show you how to convert our Lambda function in server-based approach. So by the way, you already know that guy, this is Dr. Werner, and literally speaking, his speech is amazing and literally works like a drug. So be careful with that. Only one speech per day. Nevertheless, let's jump in. So what is serverless? What serverless does? In essence, the entire world is serverless in some degree. For instance, when a platform engineer on a project, he or she creates some sophisticated constructions from bits and pieces of code, and developers utilizing this, they are using serverless approach. Is a serverless approach for platform developers lies on a different layers of paradigm. He can create, for example, or assemble server racks, install software there, or he can create some sophisticated pipelines for code distribution inside Lambda sandbox. One more cool example from real life. We don't put ourselves into forest to gather some sticks, to make a firelight, to cook something there. We are using microwaves, but we still tuning some spinners, push some buttons. Is it a serverless? So everything is serverless, and yet nothing is serverless. That's why we can accurately say that Lambdas and all other platforms are significant jump, but still small step toward technological advancement. So let's jump into general question. Why is Lambda so convenient for us? There are many ways how to manage our information within a pay-as-you-go strategy, but I'd like to emphasize three of them. It's the most common ones. First is utilizing one or several applications inside one virtual machine, or EC2 instance, if you wish. Unfortunately, we cannot predict accordingly our further workload. Even we can predict our workload, we cannot scale up or scale out accordingly. This often leads to waste of resources, but this is a payment for our resilience and robustness. Another method lies somewhere in the middle. We can break down our application in a small chunks or containers or something else and spread them across several nodes or EC2s, for example. This way we can scale out and scale up our application as well, and we additionally obtain additional layer of abstraction. We can scale up our cluster, our nodes, and using this configuration we can increase our workload density somehow, but we still have to maintain our buffer of power. So lastly, and the most flexible way is using lightweight sandboxes or lambdas in case of AWS. According to payment strategies that provided by AWS, we have to pay only for the time relative to some ephemeral memory units. Of course, when we are talking about time and cost, we cannot predict some gaps in case of scaling or sandbox provisioning. But now we can spend our time, for example, for code optimization, yeah, or instead of resource growing in case of some cloud providers. Next general point: what does Lambda represent for us as developers? So Lambda is just kind of Linux machine that provides us way how to execute something inside certain time period. So currently maximum period is 15 minutes, and additionally Lambda service provides us different runtime for code execution. So there is only one way how to interact with Lambda service natively. It is a synchronous invocation. What does it mean? It's just kind of native approach how human interacts with surrounding reality. We can see, we can hear, we can touch everything, and we receive response back immediately, near real time. And the same approach is used by Lambda itself. So we send request and receive response back. According to Dr. Werner keynote from Rain Event 2022, all entire world is asynchronous. So everything works without our interaction. But anytime we can put our eyes on some event and we will receive response back immediately. And AWS provides us such capabilities using additional internal queue that stays on top of Lambda service. And we can send requests asynchronously, and everything will be prepared accordingly. Additional entity should be placed in our boilerplate. It's a triggers. So triggers it's just kind of mechanism to make it possible connect other AWS services with Lambda entity. And for instance, API gateway or application load balancer with target groups for asynchronous invocation, or we can utilize SQS or SNS events to be sure that we are able to make some asynchronous call. Okay. Now I believe that we have to jump into our first easy level workshop. So I'm going to create just our first just templated Lambda function, and it is implemented by user interface. This is only one button approach. I like this. It's just a simple create function, and we are going to create our function from scratch. I believe you can see. Zoom in a little bit, and here we should provide just function name. It's going to be test function. And runtime, as I mentioned before, there are several runtimes. And natively, runtimes is just kind of Lambda layer with appropriate binaries and bootstrapping mechanism. And we can just apply some of them, but natively we have to use Amazon Linux. But I'm going to use in such case Python 3.11. Architecture is just kind of architecture of our virtual machine that will be created on top of workers. I will jump a little bit further, but let me emphasize this system. Permissions is just a wrapper around AWS EIM roles that provides a way how to increase our capabilities to interact for example, from different services, for example, S3 bucket or something else. I'm going to use existing role. It's going to be, doesn't matter what. By default, it provides me a way how to create default log group and provide and distribute there some log events. Advanced settings, it's a pretty interesting section, and I would like to emphasize two radio buttons here. It's a VPC connection, so we are able to connect our Lambda function directly into our internal subnets using some ephemeral network interfaces, and function URL. It's some kind of triggers, but somehow it's placed here instead of a triggers section. I'm going to use known authorization type. It will help us to make it sure that it's available for everyone in this room, for example. And there is a different invoke modes. Okay, anyway, let me just click create function. So it is here. This is just a template code here, and we are gonna receive just hello from Lambda in our interface. So you see that hello Lambda on our display. But where is the instruction for our interaction? So we just receive some response back with hello Lambda. It's here. It's just event. I'm gonna just put this event into our response body. Okay, where is it? Events. It's here, and come on. Yeah. After that, we can deploy, and this way we will redeploy our code in case of worker capabilities. And let's just refresh. And you will see that it's just kind of JSON document. And it means that Lambda will trigger just wrap up our HTTP request and make it possible to process this stuff inside our Lambda function. This request contains all necessary information. For example, headers, request contents, HTTP with method, path, and so all other stuff. Okay, it's just a simple example of how it is easy to create your first Lambda function within AWS environment. Let's jump back to our presentation. Okay. So, doesn't work, I'm sorry. One moment, please. And something goes wrong. Yeah, something happened, so let me wrap up once again, and we'll proceed with from current slide. So now we have to take a look under the hood of a Lambda service to briefly understand what's going on when we configured everything accordingly and send our first invocation request to Lambda. So Lambda service, in fact, is a whole bunch of services that cooperate between each other to provide a full range of Lambda service capabilities. So load balancer on top of invocation workflow responsible for distributing requests across multiple front-end invokers across different availability zones. Front-end invoker is a service that receives invocation request, validates it, and passes to the worker manager. Worker manager is a service just manages workers, tracks the usage of resources within and sandboxes, and assigns the request to a proper one. Workers provides a secure environment for the customer code execution. It is a service responsible for downloading code from shared S3 bucket as well. And after that, it's run it in a created sandbox. Additionally, there is a counter service that manages concurrency limit within our account, and a placement service that manages sandboxes within workers to provide a maximum packaging density. To sum it up, the invocation request is passed through load balancer to front-end invoker. Front-end invoker checks the request and asks worker manager for a sandboxed function that will handle our invocation request. Worker manager either finds a proper sandbox in a worker or creates new one. Once it's ready, the code is executed by a worker. Okay, looks good. One more thing that I would like to emphasize, when we are playing games with some, for example, EC2s or RDS clusters and OpenSearch, we have to take in mind some high available scenarios. So we have to place some in one availability zone, second one, because we know that everything happens. That's and I have to say that Lambda service is self-ready service and self-robust. As I mentioned before, there is a load balancer on top of our Lambda invocation workflow. And load balancer also able to detect potential problems in a given availability zone and route this request to the remaining ones. So far, so good. Next, and I believe the most important questions that should be covered during our workflow. So, Lambda development approach. There are two common ways how we can create appropriate Lambda entities. So, we have to take in mind that Lambda is not just a code. It's a configuration plus code as well. So we can utilize, for example, in local development. So how it works, we can leverage local stack or serverless application model, for example, but it's still a lot of gaps between real environment and provided. But for code development, it's pretty enough. In cloud, and let's say second and the most powerful way, it's in cloud development. We develop some code locally. After that, we somehow upload code to the real cloud environment and run it there. And by the way, we can adjust some permissions, security groups, or some connectivity between our networks, or for example, between our EFS service. But where does system engineer stays on this paradigm? So I believe it is Lambda service configuration, Lambda service debugging, Lambda service interaction with other services, and of course, Lambda service security. And some months ago, I've prepared some small core terminal for server-based approach. You can just click your phone camera and read me to understand what's going on under the hood while I'm showing you this small demo. And okay, let's jump in, nevertheless. I already prepared this Lambda function. I'm gonna switch back to our screen. This is a function and natively created using Bash. Literally speaking, I'm trying to write everything in Bash because it's the most robust language that provided across all Linux environments. And everything is wrapped by only Bootstrap script and Hello Shell script that wrapped up some additional HTML code to provide us full range of, let's say, fake terminal. Okay, let's switch to this terminal and look what's going on. So it looks like an usual terminal, and we can list everything in our directory. Currently, it's a Bootstrap and Hello Shell. It's pretty the same file, so we can just cat bootstrap. If you see some small helpers for me, it's just Chrome extensions that provide me information that I already created. And you see there is just a kind of code, and every Lambda invocation starts from working directory. It's a var task. And I'm gonna switch our directory to root. And our root looks like a trivial Linux environment. So using this approach, we can liberate and understand what's going on for Lambda debugging, because sometimes developers come and ask some question to why something doesn't work, how we can interact with our internal database. And there is a way how we can test connectivity between our Lambdas, for example, with internal DNS servers. One question, yeah? Of course, if I provide additional permissions. It's in Lambda. It's just show you. I click on Lambda rail. It's just kind of wrapper. I will explain you later a little bit. So okay, and how we can create such kind of testing between connectivity? Of course, we can utilize telnet utility, yeah, you know it. But there is no way currently how to install this inside our Lambda runtime. But there is a pre-built-in capabilities. I'm gonna show you how it works. I'm gonna check connectivity between from my Lambda environment to google.com in port 80. And I'm gonna utilize just a new file descriptor that I've created for Google and wrap up our bash command using timeout to be sure that we will exit one if something happens in this case. Let me run and check. And you see that exit 0 code produced for me yes, yes, yes. Let me create one more example. For example, I'm gonna try to connect to some deprecated port in case of unknown IP address. In this case, we're waiting 1 second and receive no. So this is a native way, and be careful with this way because we can theoretically create reverse terminal, for instance. Yeah, we can create some different strange things, and for example, create timeout for Lambda for 15 minutes and connect from some further host. Yeah, and that's why it's very important. Do not place some significant stuff inside your Lambda code. Okay, let me clear. One more thing, how we can, for example, resolve our DNS names within Lambda. Of course, we cannot install some DIC or NS lookup utils, but we still have some pre-built-in stuff. It's a Gitend database manager. We can just use a host and resolve our DNS name. And it works, of course, for internal DNS names as well. Let me show you how it works, for example, for my serverless cluster. Gitend. And I'm gonna just resolve my internal cluster name, and you see this is an internal internal IPs for that. Okay, yeah.
Can you involve uname-a?
Of course, and you know, this is powerful way, but unfortunately, using this way, you cannot emphasize what is it, container or micro virtual machine. Okay, uname minus a, yeah. Just Amazon Linux 2. Okay, now good questions that I've heard from our development team. What is Lambda roles? So somebody says that is some special entity from STS and somehow assume it. I'm gonna show you what's Lambda role natively. So I'm gonna export variables, and Lambda role for Lambda is just AWS access key, AWS secret key, and AWS session token. So it means be careful with that, and do not create too much permissions for your Lambda function, because somebody could steal it and run it locally, and you will find in your cloud trail that just Lambda function creates some strange and suspicious things in your account. Okay, let's move further. I've said that there is event source that where we can gather some structure or instruction how we are going to run our code, for example, and it works and answer literally in our bootstrap script. We get our event from AWS Runtime API. And let me show you how it works. So we can one more time download this event during our invocation. So CURL and headers, and that's it. It's pretty same request that I've shown before with our test Lambda function. So we can utilize these capabilities to, for example, several times download our event to coordinate it. But unfortunately, it's not helpful in case of real development process. Okay, let me show you one more interesting things. So by the way, under the hood of Lambda, you can find a lot of interesting stuff that you can use when you are developing some sophisticated structure. So I'm gonna cat some pros and CPU info. And you see there is two cores. It's pretty same way how server interacts with us, how we interact with server. And for example, I can change our Lambda configuration and create some additional memory for that. I'm gonna use maximum one. Yeah, and just save it, and after that, you see that there are 7 cores under the hood, and there are many interesting plugs inside our Lambda environment, and where you can find pretty interesting information, whether you want to investigate this terminal or no. Okay, understanding of TMP placed. I've said before that there is no way to install some binaries and utilities. It's a joke. I'm showing you how to do that. Let me switch to TMP directory. So here I'm gonna download kubectl binary and run it inside Lambda function. So CURL, I'm gonna just use the latest one release, and it is here. Let's ls-la, you see, but we cannot execute it. It's here, yeah. Let me change mode for that stuff. Okay, mode for kubectl, and that's it. Let me start it. So you see, it's potentially possible to run Terraform inside Lambda, everything, but it is not a good idea because all sandboxes leave only certain time of period, and every time you have to download it. And I found another way how to do that. this is not a problem. Why? Because you can just use kubectl to interact with your entire cluster, not to. But good point. Maybe we'll try. So let me show you. I already pre-installed AWS CLI utility. Let me show you. So here is version 2.7. And I found a way how to do that. There is Lambda layers. So let me show you. I've already pre-installed GQ utility and AWS CLI utility. GQ needs to make this terminal works, and AWS CLI to debug everything. So this is a literally native way how to do that, not from local environment, but instead from Lambda function. And using this AWS CLI, we can debug, for example, our permissions, receive our manifest, and so on. Let me show you how to debug permissions. For example, I'm gonna list our S3 buckets. So you see, I cannot do that because access denied. And because I didn't create some additional policies for this stuff. But I've created one policy for Lambda service manifest downloads. Let me show you. So there is a pre-built environment variable. It's a AWS Lambda function name. And I'm going to show you structure of this stuff. This is full bunch of configuration for Lambda service. And here you can find that I mentioned before, worker is able to download your code from some shared bucket. And this bucket is under scope of your account. So it means that somebody has access to your code. And if somebody steals this just pre-sign URL link and paste in his, for example, browser, he's able to download your code. Yeah, and this code will be the same. One more. I've tried after certain minutes and it works. So, but this is not a problem. Maybe you have some audit process and you will find this bad guy to make sure that everything gathered accordingly. But the problem is credential scope. It's a Asia 25. So it means that you will not find this information within your CloudTrail platform. So I believe that's pretty it. Let me show you how to make it down. So just send a small bomb, and that's pretty fine solution. I've shown you a whole bunch of capabilities of this Lambda terminal. You can use it in your behalf. I believe that will be helpful in your cloud and Lambda investigation. And I would like to thanks for your attention, and please questions.
Questions, guys? Because oh, I see at least two. Okay, so go ahead, Hleb. You could manage it as you want.
First question about billing. You will be billed for the full time, or you will be billed only the process, the commands in your terminal?
It works pretty simple. You send request. This request wrapped by bash and evaluated inside Lambda. So you will pay before you start your request, after you receive it back. One more question, maybe.
Use cases of those Lambdas.
So, okay, for example, somebody created EFS attachment to a Lambda. This EFS contains terabyte of data, and developers came to you and said, we cannot connect and download anything because you didn't prepare everything accordingly. And using this stuff, you just can replace your code with this terminal. Everything checks by yourself using just native server-based approach. Otherwise, you have to create some code to find something, to produce something into logs, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is a pretty fast forward method.
Sorry. What about the CloudWatch? I mean, attached for the Lambda function. I mean, if you trigger something, the CloudWatch is attached to the Lambda function, we can see maybe some logs on some.
Of course, but you have to prepare everything in logs to be sure that you can see it.
So with this tool, we can see it on running, right?
You can debug everything on fly.
Offline, online. Okay.
So that was a very good presentation. Thank you. 2 questions from my side. Have you experimented with proc info with the ARMs as well, with the Graviton Lambda?
So it means ARM's architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're using that in some production environments. It's pretty.
I mean, for this particular test terminal, because you at some point you did the cut with the proc info.
Yeah.
And have you tried that with ARMs?
No, I didn't try, but I think it's pretty same.
Yeah, that's my point. Like, exercise for the reader. This will be pretty interesting one to observe what will print out. And the second one is actually I really like the debugging angle regarding this. So have you tried this in practice on your production as well and try to debug with the test terminal what happened? Are you using that on a daily basis?
Yeah, I'm using this stuff on daily basis, but unfortunately, I'm avoid touching production. So everything could be touched in staging. It's pretty the same.
Makes
and
sense.
After that, you will prepare everything, change your configuration, and apply this configuration pro. But if you are going to use this with production, you have to enable signed v4 authentication mechanism and use appropriate curl for that, or browser extension.
Yeah, that's what the answer I hope for. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Amazon Linux, and so we can install some software, example Vim or other tools.
Yeah, it is possible, but it lies on some mechanism of, let's say, application management. For the tools, you need some C libraries, yeah, and you have to gather in pack accordingly. Yeah, this is not a problem if you are able to use just download manager as a get or curl, but unfortunately you cannot use some APT or DNF or YAM. It is not possible within this environment. This is a sandbox, cut sandbox.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I have I think two questions. Maybe first question, so I correctly understand what you said. First, does anybody who has links to this Lambda can open it, or this still relates on my access rights?
It relates only for your IP address. So that's why it's very important to understand. So if anyone from this room will connect to this endpoint, they will have their own terminal. This is special abstraction layer, but we will use the same, absolutely same sandbox. But if, for example, 100 people connect to this terminal, maybe that will be some sort of difficulties, because you cannot utilize, for example, PVD abstraction layers. That's how we can say that I'm staying in, for example, root directory, or I'm staying in a working directory. And this connection definitely applies only for your IP address. But you can change this code. This is a free repository to connect it, for example, for header some, or for example, something else. And you can cover these functionalities by some secure approach with sign v4 and sign each your request to this Lambda to make sure that you are working only once.
So my question was around that. So can basically somebody hack my Lambda this way? Hack? Yeah, basically connect.
So if you open this endpoint and send it in some forums, that potentially it's possible.
Yeah, by default, it's not the case.
No.
You need to treat it as a tool.
Yeah.
Something that you are enabling on purpose to actually enable.
But my question was, when they enable it, who can access it?
I think you answered, like, it is available for your IP address.
IP address. Yeah, basically, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there is a literally tricky question, because you know that many accounts has some SCP, so we cannot create, for example, public security groups, yeah, from 000 to public. But using Lambda resolver, you can treat this and connect directly to your private subnets without any public available security groups. So that's why it's very important if you have your own organization, just enable or disable ability to create a public accessible Lambda URL.
That was my reasoning behind the question, if you are using this in production, like, because it sounds like a very interesting idea to actually explore and very interesting one to debug stuff, but you are opening a security hole essentially. And that's great that you're mentioning that, and I think the idea is brilliant, but at the same time it scares me a lot. Like, there is so much potential to actually abuse it that I think this should not be available for unexperienced user, for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so I have another question that builds probably on the first one. Is, so to my understanding, now me as a developer, if I connect to this Lambda, basically I can explore anything that this Lambda has access to, even just me myself. So basically I can just like, I have a problem with Lambda, yeah, and I just want to test it, so I don't have to go like write, I don't know, JavaScript code or Python code, just basically connect and just try everything that Lambda has access to.
Yeah, so for example, you have to create some codes that should be able to connect to DynamoDB or RDS, and you can just install this terminal into your prepared Lambda entity, test everything, create stricted permissions according to a security approach, and after that close this hole and upload your code.
Okay, thank you.
We have one more question, and probably last one.
I have a question about, did you try, or maybe is it possible to run Docker image inside, Docker container inside this?
Yeah, I've investigated this stuff, and unfortunately Docker works as a daemon. So we need to run daemon there. It is possible, but we need to rewrite a little bit logic, because there is only one directory where you have write access. But you can utilize K3C, not S, but C. This stuff potentially could create Docker images inside Lambda and upload this onto Docker public repository.
Somehow it's not secure in this way.
You know that everything is not secure if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, so it can run a long time. The container is alive, then Lambda is still alive, as I understand.
Lambda alive.
Or 15 minutes.
Not 15 minutes. It waits only when you send exit 1 or exit 0. So it depends on your container.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, of course.
A little fitness for me. So
small exercise for Anton.
Yeah, small exercise. So brilliant. Just brilliant. And again, guys, my favorite part, Hleb, please choose 2 questions, which is you like, and we will revert, not actually choose 2 best questions, let's say, and 5.
So 7 questions?
No, I mean, at least choose your 2 favorite questions.
2 favorite questions. So 1 question related to investigation our Lambda entity before code uploading. It's pretty once, because this is a native approach how to
Feel
utilize.
free to reward. Your gifts is under the table, this one.
Up here.
Yes, here and here. No, this also.
I don't know what's going on around you.
This is the one. This is the second one.
So
yes.
this is the one.
And
okay.
Additionally, I will send you the ticket to the InfoShare conference in private. Okay?
So, and
this is
the next question from that side, I didn't remember exactly who asked regarding. You asked, yeah, about Docker image.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting question because I've tried this.
And again, please contact me. I will share with you ticket to the InfoShare. Okay, and. Help me to count 5 more, sorry, not 5, 3 more person.
Man, you are doing something strange.
I remember the question from, you don't care. Okay, okay, we will proceed it after the event. I will reward all of the questions with the ticket to the InfoShare. We don't care now. I will rewatch the video and find you guys. So. Probably we can close the event. Pizza has just arrived. So thanks a lot, guys, for coming. Stay tuned, follow our social networks, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. and